Just in case we haven't had the chance to meet before, my name is Rachel Wilson. I'm the CEO of the Ottawa Food Bank. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional, unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. The Algonquin people have lived on the land since time immemorial. We are grateful to be present in this territory, and we pay respect to all Indigenous people in this region from all nations across Canada. We honor the courageous leaders, past, present, and future. And in this moment, I invite you to take 3 deep breaths and acknowledge and honor the gifts this land has given you and pay respect to those who have come before us. Thank you. We're incredibly excited to welcome you all today for our 4th annual Food Security Conference here in Ottawa. Our theme this year is around innovative approaches to community-focused food security. Food Banks Canada is also releasing their hunger report today, and their hunger report is showing that people accessing food banks in Canada is at the highest level in history. National coverage has begun this morning and is calling the situation dire. So it is very timely that we have our conference today asking for innovative approaches to addressing food security. We all know that food banking is not the solution and it does not solve the issue of food insecurity, but food banks do play an important part in dealing with the immediate and pressing issues that people face in our community. The issue of food insecurity touches on so many factors, from food policy, public transportation, public health, housing, systemic racism, ableism, poverty, education. I could go on. This means that the solutions must be diverse and cross-sectoral. We cannot achieve anything without each of us dreaming of better and, more importantly, committing to action. To change the systems we work in, we must work together and take a collaborative approach and look at innovative ways of addressing the issues. What we have done for 40 years has not solved the issue. Today, we will hear from some of those working to change the systems, doing things differently. And different acknowledges the need for a wide variety of responses and solutions. We need challenging ideas, unique perspective, disruptors, big dreamers, and steadfast doers. And we must create the space for every voice and value everyone's input. In honor of the value that every person brings today, we recognize the need to create a safe space and respectful space in which everyone feels welcome to share their thoughts. We ask everyone here today to commit to creating this space. I hope that today inspires you, engages you, makes you question things, and maybe even makes you uncomfortable. But most importantly, I hope you see what an important role you play, that we all play in doing things differently, and that every action and every person matters. So thank you for giving your passion and commitment to doing things differently and being a part of this community-wide and important work. I'm going to turn it back over to Anne to now introduce our plenary speaker, and thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Rachel. We are delighted to have Katie Martin speak as our plenary speaker today. Katie has dedicated herself to researching food insecurity with the goal of creating a paradigm shift, moving away from short-term transactions towards long-term transformations for people. Previously, Katie was the executive director of Food Share Institute for Hunger and Research and Solutions, and she's recently authored a book, Reinventing Food Banks and Pantries, which I highly recommend. I very much enjoyed it. Very informative. She currently provides consulting services to promote this paradigm shift in food insecurity. This session, I will mention, will be recorded, as you may know, if you want to review this after the fact. Please join me in welcoming Katie Martin for her talk, Community Food Security, Sparking Collaboration and Innovation.
Bon matin. Good morning. I am thrilled and humbled to be here with all of you today to hopefully spark new collaborations, inspiration, and innovation. As Anne mentioned, I recently started a new consulting firm called More Than Food Consulting. And so much of my work is based on the firm belief that it takes more than food to end hunger. That's all of that really innovative approach that Rachel was describing. So as we think about this work, I'm thrilled to share with you, as Anne mentioned, that I recently wrote a book that was published in March of 2021 called Reinventing Food Banks and Pantries. And the goal of my book is bold yet simple. It's to reimagine the way that we think about this preventable problem of hunger, and to inspire new ways of thinking, and most importantly, to spur action. At the end of every chapter, there are tangible action steps that you can take today in your communities. A lot of people ask me my motivation for writing the book. I really poured about 25 years of experience into writing the book. I visited many food banks, or what we call food pantries, in the States. And I would often see really innovative, awesome programs. And yet 2 blocks over, or 2 weeks later, I would visit another food bank that was focusing on transactional approaches that looked fairly outdated. And I wanted to inspire change. But my main motivation for writing the book is depicted in this picture here. It's one of my favorite photos from a food bank in Hartford, Connecticut called Fresh Place. And my motivation is to change the trajectory of poverty and food insecurity for the next generation. So this beautiful young daughter who's shopping with her mom doesn't have to experience that worry and anxiety of getting enough food for her family. One of the things that I think holds us back from innovation and collaboration is what's been called the scarcity mentality. And you can think about this very easily from an individual standpoint. For an individual who is struggling with food insecurity, there's a focus on lack of enough food, money, resources to pay the bills by the end of the week or the end of the month. And when you have this scarcity mentality, you focus on lack. You have coping strategies to try to stretch your food dollars, to make difficult trade-off decisions between paying for food or rent or utilities. It lacks the ability to plan and to future think. And this is easy to think about for individuals, but I would encourage you all today, and I'm so thrilled that there's a broad diversity of organizations here today focusing on this in Ottawa, because it takes a lot of collaboration. I would encourage you to think about how much at the organizational level do you have a scarcity mentality? Are you focused on not having enough volunteers, time, food, space, resources, funding? When we focus on that lack, it hinders our ability to collaborate with other organizations. We may feel like if another nonprofit organization gets funding, then we need to compete with them, and it's going to limit our ability to get funding. And that's really old school thinking, that we need to shift to more of an abundance mindset. One more thing here that I want to mention around coping strategies. I think it's important for all of us to realize we've gone through a very challenging 2.5 years with this global pandemic and facing extraordinary need in our communities. And I think it's important for all of us to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, our staff, our volunteers. There's a lot of burnout, and there's a lot of stress that comes with this work. So make sure that you're taking care of yourself and your teams as well. As Anne mentioned, much of my work is promoting a paradigm shift. And by that, I mean shifting from scarcity to abundance, shifting from a focus on emergency distributions towards empowerment, and shifting from transactional approaches to transformational change. And this work is so important now when we think of how much we've all had to change the way that we do things because of COVID-19. We've all had to get outside of our comfort zone. Now is the perfect time for change. And I often describe how we in the charitable food system are doing very good work, but we can do better. It's time to shift and grow and transform the work we do. And often I describe this work as the 3 C's, and I'm going to provide a few examples and hopefully give you some inspiration for how to create a more welcoming culture within your food banks and programs, to offer choice with dignity, and to make connections to additional community resources. And that's where it's so exciting that so many diverse groups are here today in your summit. When you think about your food programs in your local community, how does it look and feel when you're coming in to receive services? This is what we often describe as having a welcoming culture. There are many different examples here of how you can create a culture that's less stigmatizing, less embarrassing, and more empowering, that people would feel excited and proud to come. This is rooted in customer service and hospitality. Simple things like the language that you use on your websites, on your posters, on your signage. Is it strength-based and welcoming? How can you incorporate trauma-informed care in the work that you do? Can you provide trainings for your volunteers and staff to understand and appreciate how trauma can impact those that are coming to receive help? Having a welcoming culture also translates into the hours that you're open for services. Are those most convenient for the people that you are serving in your community, or are they most convenient for your volunteers? This picture on the left is from a small food pantry in North Carolina here in the States. And throughout the summer, they would have flowers out for guests to take home. And it's a great example of just creating a welcoming space that's dignified, sharing the bounty of resources within a community. I'm a big advocate for choice, allowing people to shop for their food with dignity like they would at a grocery store. And we know that during COVID-19, because of public health precautions, many food banks had to go through drive-through distributions and pre-packing food. I'm happy to say that many food programs are shifting back to choice and allowing people to shop for their food. This is a recent quote from a food pantry here in the States. There is no substitute for people choosing their food, none, because they're not thinking of it as a hand up, they're thinking of it as shopping. One of the things that we've been doing recently is being clearer about the different levels of choice. So rather than thinking of it as yes, no, either you pre-bag food and there's no choice, or you offer choice, that it's more nuanced. And there are ways that you can move to limited, modified, or full choice. And there are opportunities to increase the amount of choice as you go, to be able to offer additional types of choice, allowing people to select their food online like they would at a grocery store. So I would encourage you to think of different ways that you might increase the amount of choice that you're offering in your food programs, especially as we emerge from this pandemic. I know that the Ottawa Food Bank and many of your food banks are focusing on promoting healthy food, not just pounds of food as our metric, but looking at the nutritional quality of that food, increasing the amount of fresh produce that's available, providing nudges to make the healthy choice the easier choice. There are many different strategies related to nutrition policies, creating systems to make it easier for people to select healthy food, and changing the environment within your food bank so that it looks more like a farmer's market or a beautiful grocery store instead of only non-perishable food items. I was pleased to be part of the healthy eating research nutrition guidelines that help to rank food nutritionally into green, yellow, and red. And there are resources online that you can check out with our SWAP stoplight system supporting wellness at pantries. You can go to swapmaterials.org for more information on ranking food nutritionally. When we think about connections, we can think about how to provide more wraparound services to address those underlying reasons of why people may be struggling with food insecurity in the first place. And again, if you think about taking baby steps and moving along the continuum, you can think about having passive information, maybe a table or a bulletin board of information, moving towards having a resource center with computers so people can check out additional resources, maybe apply for jobs and other services within the community, to having a trained set of volunteers who provide warm referrals and classes on site to make it more of a one-stop shopping service, moving all the way where you can have trained staff and coaches who help with goal setting using motivational interviewing. I had the pleasure recently of talking with Aileen from Rideau Radcliffe and their community resource center that's doing a lot of these really innovative wraparound services. As we think about centering the people that we serve at the heart of everything we do, when we think about connections to additional community resources, let's remember that those closest to the problem have the best solutions. How can we engage those that are struggling with food insecurity as change makers? They're the ones that are going to have the best ideas and the best examples for the services that they need, and how we can not just advocate for them, but for broader community change. That's where we move into advocacy and policy change. How this all comes together, and I'm so excited for you all to spend the day talking about collaborations, inspiration, systems change. We need many, many different groups to do this work together. Rather than thinking of this as a yes or a either or, think of it as yes and. As we move towards community food security, we need to not just be thinking about healthy food, but also how do we engage the housing sector, healthcare, food systems, local farms, other food programs. How do we engage with the employment sector, helping folks get ready to build job skills and training so that they can not just get by today, but so that they can thrive long-term. Other additional education and skills. And if we're hoping to help people get better jobs and education, let's focus on childcare and transportation systems to help them achieve those goals. And then last but certainly not least, all of these relate back to policies and law and the systems that make it easier for people to get ahead. So I would encourage you to think about what piece of this presentation today sparked some new ideas for you? What was an aha moment? What was one area you said, that's an area that we want to move into? What action step will you take? And I want to pause here and we can open up for time for questions. And I've got my contact information here. I'm based in Connecticut, just south of you all.
Thank you so much, Katie. We do have a bit of time for questions, so I invite Lauren Whalen, our chat monitor, to share any questions that have popped up in the chat during your talk. Lauren, take it away, please.
Thanks, Anne. I am just opening up our Zoom chat now. I know that there was one question just from someone, Katie, who was wondering if you would be willing to share your slides by chance of the presentation. That is a nod yes.
Bien sûr.
Perfect. And that is the only question so far. We'll give it just maybe 30 more seconds to see if anyone else is slowly but enthusiastically typing.
Great.
So I have a question from Sid. Oh yeah, we've got a few questions coming in now. So Sid wonders, can food waste be an answer to food insecurity?
It's a great question. And in many ways, that's how food banking came about early on, was the concern about food waste and simultaneously how to make sure that the food, rather than being wasted, could go to people in need. I think there are opportunities to blend a focus on environmental sustainability and making sure that we're not wasting food to folks that need it. At the same time, we know that we mass produce so much food that in many ways, the amount of food waste often coincides with inexpensive calories and larger portion sizes that aren't really good for any of us. That I think, to me, I think food waste is part of it, but not the full solution.
That's great. Thank you so much, Katie. And there are actually now a number of questions in the chat. So Christine is wondering, she says, thank you, Katie. I'm really interested in the food literacy that you mentioned and job skills. If you could speak a bit more to that.
Sure. So if we think about the problem of food insecurity as rooted in poverty and the inability of people to afford enough food, not just lack of food, then we want to help empower folks to gain the skills, the training, the resources they need to maybe get a different job, a better paying job, get back into the job sector. So we've been doing some work with some food banks here in the States of connecting with workforce development partners. So sometimes that's through community colleges, sometimes that's through workforce boards, so that we can find out what are the good paying jobs that are available in the community where they're hiring and they need better skilled employees. How do we match folks that are coming to our local food banks to help them skill up so that they can meet those jobs in the local community? It's a lot about relationship building and partnerships so that you can match job seekers with living wage jobs.
Thank you so much. That is all the time we have for questions today. If folks have other questions, please feel free to share them with us, and I'll see what I can do to get answers for you. Now, that brings us to the end of this session, and it was such a rich session. I thank you so much, Katie. The yes and idea just opens up possibility and really, I think, helps us, at least it helps me move beyond that scarcity mentality that I think we're all prone to at times. So I thank you, and I invite everyone to join me in thanking you for being with us here today and sharing your ideas and your inspiration, really. We will be.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. We will, folks, we'll all be jumping out of this session, and your next session will be the lightning round session. So we'll jump in there next, and we'll see you all there. Thank you.